What is going on? I want to welcome you from Half Court for today, Wednesday, December 21st, 2022. I'm your host, John Murphy, alongside to my right, Jeff Iafredi in his new mansion. Jeff, that morning Woodward money seems to be plentiful, and you're diving in it, my friend. I'm happy for you.
Yeah, I'm just even though I'm in the same state as you guys, it's it's sunny over here, except for Troy. Troy's in Indiana, but still it's sunny over here. It's dark over there. So I don't get it. Don't worry about it. The fact of the matter is I got a piano. So, after this, I'm gonna go play the piano, watch the Packers, hopefully lose. So
You know
yeah.
what's funny though? Do you remember they had Damian Woody on Armani and Edwards
Yeah.
back in the playoffs last year? That looks exactly like his living room. That's the funny thing, is that he literally has that same piano in the corner, like that beautiful
Did he?
I'm like, are you in Damian Woody's house? Is that where you're
Or
at?
is Damian Woody in my house? No, I'm just joking. No, I'm joking.
Oh my gosh. Speaking of in the house, we have my guy, Troy Surrey. We are here actually recording the pod early so Troy can watch his Green Bay Packers try and fight for the playoff lives tonight on Monday Night Football. Is that right, Troy?
It is, but it's not going to happen, Sean. I have no faith in this Packers team at all.
So then why do you want to watch it? Why did you make it a point to make sure you could go watch this game then?
Because, Sean, it's the Packers, bro.
I love it. It sounds like Lions fans over the last
I have no faith.
Years.
This could only go terribly. I have to watch every second.
Hey, is that not a story of a Lions fan the last 50 years? I mean, let's be honest. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And for the record, of course, so I'm from Upper Michigan, and all of us up there cheer for the Packers because
if you're from the Upper Peninsula, you're essentially from Wisconsin.
Right. It's a 2.5-hour drive to Green Bay.
Cheese, 100%.
Versus 8 hours to Detroit. Now, granted, we cheer for Detroit for all the other sports, but for football, it's the Packers. If it was the Milwaukee Packers, we'd cheer for the Lions. But since it's Green Bay, it's so close to the border, we're all cheeseheads up there. So
it makes sense. Yeah, for sure. But, at the end of the day, Troy, no matter what happens, as long as you're not the New England Patriots this weekend, you are golden. I just got to say really quickly, that play, and I know it has nothing to do with basketball. And I know by Wednesday, this is going to be an old meme, but the New England Patriots are my least favorite team in all of professional sports. I'm not saying that I'm happy that happened, but if I could collectively lick the tears of all New England Patriots fans after that moment, I would just take it in a cup and I would guzzle that shit. That's all I'm saying. That was
that's got to be the worst.
It just wasn't a smart football play.
What was it? What was he thinking?
It was a tied game too. Just get tackled.
Just take the knee. Shout out to Jacoby Myers though, because he took the heat, man. He sat there and answered every question from every reporter after that play, and he took ownership of it all. So, hey, I don't got as big as balls as he does. I mean, I'd be the first one out of there after that play. But that was a disaster. It really was.
I mean, getting paid that type of money, you got to take the heat.
Yeah, he owned up to it. I mean, hey, respect to him.
Mm-hmm. But guys, speaking of taking the heat, there is a lot to talk about with this NBA season, with the Detroit Pistons, with what teams should do, because we're getting to the point of the year where we're starting to figure out what teams really are, right? And we got to talk about what exactly should be happening around the association, because this is From Half Court, where we talk each and every week all things NBA basketball and Detroit Pistons. If you like that, make sure you like this video, subscribe to the channel, subscribe to the podcast, and follow us on all of the podcast services that your heart desires. You can also keep up with us on social media so you don't miss any From Half Court content and what we are up to. You can catch my guy Jeff at Jeff Iafredi. You can see my boy Troy at Troy Sergey 44. You can catch myself, if you're feeling oh so charitable, at Sean Half Court. Also, you can check us out on TikTok, YouTube Shorts. We have a lot of content there as well. We are not just here to talk for an hour. You can even just listen to us for 60 seconds if that's more digestible. But anyway, guys, let's talk Pistons as we do to start each and every week. Now, last night, the Detroit Pistons, as a recording, played the Brooklyn Nets. They came out and led by as much as 19. However, as the game went on, the Pistons got in foul trouble in the third quarter. They allowed Kevin Durant to get about 10, 11 attempts at the free throw line in the third quarter alone.
Yeah.
And then from there, Kevin Durant got hot. And when Kevin Durant got hot, Kyrie Irving also got hot. And the Brooklyn Nets won their 6th game in a row. I know a lot of people are upset and frustrated, but guys, when I watch the Pistons, like even in these games where they manage to slip up and lose and screw it up, like I still can't help but be amazed by the talent, the potential, and what this team would be right now, even if Cade Cunningham was in the lineup. Because I mean, just when we talk about the Jalen Duren and Isaiah Stewart combination, when those guys are in the lineup against Brooklyn, they had no answers. Like nothing. Like Nick Claxton couldn't handle the size of Beef Stew and Jalen Duren. And with Beef and with Stewart's ability, like he didn't really have as much of an offensive impact that night. I think it's part of what did Detroit in was that they just weren't getting that full impact. But like Isaiah Stewart's ability to like stretch the floor, go to the 3-point line, like the fact that they can make that two big lineup, work in this NBA, I think is going to be something huge for them. But like overall, like I guess my question is like, after like another week of some pretty competitive basketball, like, where are you guys at now that we're, a quarter into the season? And what do you guys want to see over the next couple of months? What do you want to see leading up to the trade deadline?
Well, I'll start with specifically last night real quick. I thought they played a great first half. I mean, watching the game, they only had 2 turnovers at halftime. I love the Isaiah Stewart and Jalen Duren front court, which kind of ties into what I want to see and continue to see, which is player development. We've seen that already. I think Ivey coming back, he played well in 28 minutes. He had 19 points. But from the rest of the guys as well, Saddiq Bey kind of growing and maturing into that role off the bench. You see how impressive the bench has been too. I mean, even with Saddiq moving to the bench, it's like, oh, he has more of an opportunity. I mean, not really. I mean, you have Bagley, Burks, you still have talent coming off your bench. But moving forward, it's got to be player development, especially among the rookies. But not only that, Isaiah Stewart. You want to see those guys. Bojan, you know what you're getting out of him. I mean, he's a walking bucket. Guy can shoot from anywhere on the court. But Killian Hayes, you want to continue to see him play the way he's been playing. I mean, he had 5 3-point shot attempts last night. Like, just continue to be aggressive because Killian Hayes over this stretch of games without Cade has been playing exceptional. Like, this is a new Killian Hayes. And we talked about this, Sean, too, in a video, the benefits and also the negatives of Cade being out. I think the benefit has been guys getting more of an opportunity like Killian, but also you're seeing some of those negatives, right, with players having to adjust without Cade Cunningham. So that's all I want to see continuing moving forward. The wins and losses thing, I'm pretty much over that. I mean, to see them compete last night was a positive for me. We know this team's not very good, especially without your star player, your franchise player. So to me, it's got to be guys getting better and just continuing to compete. You don't want to be embarrassed. I mean, they're so bad defensively. They gave up 50% shooting from the field, 50% from 3, and 90% from the free throw line. So it's like their guys are getting we know they're terrible defensively. If you can improve on that, that's a plus. But to me, it's got to be player development. If we look back at the end of the season and guys still look as good as they're looking right now, I'll take that as a positive.
Right. And they were doing really well in the first half, but the problem is when when you're a young team and you start to, when you start to get those fouls racking up and you allow, guys like Kevin Durant, those shots at the free throw line, like Kevin Durant is the type of scorer that the last thing you need to do is give him easy opportunities to get going. Right. And,
Right.
and the problem is when you're, biting on fakes, when you're making those mental mistakes, when you're coming out of the locker room and things are a little bit more sloppy and Kevin Durant gets to go to the line. And then all of a sudden he starts hitting really difficult shots because as you watch the rest of the game, it wasn't like the Pistons were giving up on the defensive end. It wasn't like they weren't playing defense. In fact, there were moments they were actually playing really good defense against Kevin Durant. The thing was, he's Kevin freaking Durant, and he got going.
And Sean, also, you're so right. I mean, let's be honest. There's not a single person on this roster that can guard either, guys. Not even on this roster in the NBA. Yeah, on this planet, but specifically, you don't have anybody that can go slow those guys down. So they already don't have that. And on top of that, you're giving up free throw shots to guys like Kevin Durant. We all know great scorers in the NBA. You get to the free throw line, you're in trouble. If those guys can get easy buckets, everything else comes easy to them. So
yeah,
it is what it is.
But also, I mean, in Troy too, like, we've talked about this before of games where, where you miss Cade or where you see the absence of Cade. This is an aspect where, Detroit came out and in the first half, they threw every punch they had. They came out explosive on the offensive end, but it was pretty clear in the second half that they had nothing left. Right.
Sure. Right.
And the thing is that you could tell that coming into this game that Brooklyn was discombobulated. Like the first half from Brooklyn was one of the worst first halves from a team I've seen this year. Like they were terrible. Right.
Right.
But what got them over the hump was their franchise players doing what franchise players do. Right. And like that's the difference. When you see like when you have those types of franchise players in this league, you have at least 3 to 4 games a year you're going to win just off of their brilliance.
Yeah, I would even say maybe a little bit more. And I think that's something exciting to see out of Brooklyn this year because, they were a team where we didn't quite know what to expect, especially after all the rumors this summer with Durant being traded. Is he going to stay? Whatever. And just their disappointing, I guess, first round exit last year, even though it was a great Boston team that they played first round. But I think you're right, Sean. And I think looking at Brooklyn's perspective with those two guys, they're going to win, I think, more than just 4 games because of their franchise players pushing them over the hump. And I think come playoff time, we might see a game or two in the first round go their Brooklyn's way because
they'll win games if they push them over the hump. I more so meant where I think this is where like I think Kevin Durant more than push them over the hump. I think he single-handedly put them on their back and said, okay, I'm winning this because he outscored the Pistons 26 to 25 in the third quarter,
which is nuts. And if
like
you watch
that is something that only Kevin Durant can do.
And if you watch that game, I mean, man, how many threes did Kyrie shoot in transition that went in? How many pull-up J's did Kevin Durant make, especially in that third quarter, like you mentioned? It was too much for this young team to do to compete against. But something I'm looking forward to is same thing I did say a couple months ago when what's the most important thing or what thing am I looking forward to this season? That's going to be the play from our rookies, especially a Jalen Duren and Jaden Ivey. I mean, the improvement that they've had just in 2.5 months, guys. I mean, that's exciting to know. I mean, almost 3 now, or I guess two full months now. How much we've seen both of them grow in the league so far, especially a Jalen Duren, who's just a different animal on both the offensive and defensive end. I mean, we don't talk about that enough. I mean, this guy is a freak athlete. And he's gonna do a lot of things in this league. He's gonna be in this league for 10 plus years. He hopefully most or if not all those years
in this league for 20 years, Troy. Like this guy just turned 19 a month and a half ago.
Right.
Like, and the thing that's crazy, like this, he's been playing so well that I've gotten to the point where I've been starting to ponder this question in my head, and I want to bring it to you guys. I've been asking myself, could it both be true that Jaden Ivey will end up being the better basketball player, but Jalen Duren was the most important pick for Detroit in this draft?
That's a fair statement. Go ahead,
because even though like Jaden Ivey is also a special player, and he's going to bring an impact to this franchise, his athleticism, his scoring ability, being that backcourt duo with Cade, like obviously Ivey's going to have a massive impact on this team. However, having the Jalen Duren aspect brings this team to a different level than where they were. And even from like just the past couple of weeks, like even though they still have to improve on the defensive end, and even though it still hasn't been perfect, like seeing Isaiah Stewart being backed up by Jalen Duren at the rim is just like the amount of confidence that gives me as a fan, like over what, like, where things were at, like just from like a defensive standpoint, like that has real legs to be one of the best defensive front courts in the entire league, like in the fact that those guys also, have a bond and a relationship together. And Jeff, we actually went over this in our video we did earlier this week. They even gave each other like a nickname already. Troy, you're familiar with this? They're calling each other the Dog Pound.
I have not heard that yet.
Isn't that sick?
I like it.
Dude, the Dog Pound, man. I'm telling you, it's going to be one of the most dangerous like front courts in the NBA. Like I'm excited to see Evan Mobley and Jared Allen face off against Jalen Duren and Isaiah Stewart. Like that's going to be matchups that we're going to be seeing down the line. Like I'm
Yeah.
just, and I think, like teams are going to genuinely struggle with their toughness, especially as they develop that chemistry. And Jeff, I wanted to circle back to a point you brought up a minute ago about how much better this Detroit bench has been. I wrote an article about that, and it posted as a recording today, but when this comes out on Monday, and it's actually highlighting the fact this Pistons bench started the year in their first 8 games, they averaged 22 points a game. They were the worst bench in the league. Since November 9th, Detroit's bench is number 1 in the league in scoring and went from 22 points a game to 46. They're technically playing a minute less than they were to start the season. So they've doubled their points in technically less minutes.
And I think a lot of that has to do with Corey Joseph, obviously,
of course,
and the impact.
Kojo the God, yeah,
Kojo the God. No, but to your point, I mean, I think it's obviously been the strength, especially with Cade out. But we talked. I mean, hey, we kind of foreshadowed this. You're waiting for Burks to get back. We knew what kind of player he was. Marvin Bagley getting moved to the bench, Duren and Killian getting elevated now to playing starter minutes,
and even Sadiq being able to come in and embrace that 6-man role.
Yep, and Sadiq being moved to the bench. But I think another one that's been part of it, and a player who's been playing really well, is Kevin Knox. Honestly, and I got it again. I'm willing to give him his flowers. Early in the year, I was frustrated seeing him out there a little bit, but now that he's kind of gotten to a groove, he's been playing really well. So a guy you're paying $3 million to, I like how the bench is forming up. I mean, you're not playing Diallo and Noel, Magruder. Like there's still a couple guys that you were seeing in the rotation earlier. So it took Dwayne to figure out a solid bench. Now we got it. It looks great. And it just makes it even more frustrating knowing that, man, I just want to see this team at full strength. And I'm always going to go back to that, but it's frustrating, but still it's been exceptional. I mean, that's what's been keeping this team afloat as of late.
But guys, here's the exciting part. Even if Detroit, because more than likely Detroit's not going to keep this up. More than likely this is not going to be the number 1 second unit in the NBA, because if you look at the other teams that were up there with them, it was teams like the Indiana Pacers, the New Orleans Pelicans, like every other team, the Los Angeles Clippers, like every other team that was up there is a team that has genuine playoff aspirations. The fact that Detroit got up there at all this season, and they're in the Wembanyama sweepstakes, is significant because they wanted this, because we've talked about all summer and even into this fall, how Troy Weaver made the choice of getting Jalen Duren, meaning that they were pushing that salary cap space to next offseason, right? They have the best bench in the league right now, and they're going to have $60 million in cap space this summer. And the guys that are performing really well for them on their bench right now are on really team-friendly contracts. Like Alec Burks, if you wanted to bring him back, that's a pretty affordable contract. That's $10 million. It would be $10 million to the cap that you could just pick up on a team option. You could probably extend him to something relatively around that same number if you wanted to. Next year, you're probably bringing Bojan off the bench, making that unit even better. You're talking about all the potential moves that they can make with that money that's going to open up, and you're getting a lottery pick, this upcoming year as well, and you're getting Cade Cunningham back full healthy to start the season. When we talk about this team being able to turn a corner very quickly and the signs of a team that's going to be turning a corner in the next year or two, those are the things you want to see before you see a team turn a corner. And that's exactly what we're seeing right now.
And Troy, too, before you go, I want to bring this up because it's been a common theme with Troy Weaver, and again, exceptional. I mean, we can't say anything bad really right now about Troy Weaver. The guy's been crushing it, and he's been keeping flexibility. And we use this every offseason. Flexibility. You have cap space coming up. It's never a problem when you have an abundance of young talent. If you have a roster full of talent, that's a good problem to have. And even though you're missing Cade and you're going to have a top 3 draft pick this year expected, and you have all that money in free agency, and you like the guys you have currently, that's a great problem to have. It really is.
Yeah, most certainly.
Certainly. And I was just going to add Isaiah Stewart to that mix too, of just his production as well. And especially the 3-point shooting that we've seen from him. And I know you guys made a video on that. Shout out to you guys for that. But I just think that adds a different addition to the team. I'm not necessarily throwing that name out there in trade talks even though I guess that could be a trade piece at the deadline. I'm not saying I would want to part ways with that. No, I'm shaking my head as well with that too.
Yeah,
but it's certainly
I would
something
say,
that's worth
Troy,
talking.
like
Go ahead.
I would feel like I would go out on a limb. Other than Cade Cunningham, I think Isaiah Stewart's the least likely Piston to be traded on this.
Sure.
On this
And again,
roster. Like
I wasn't promoting that. Just
oh
saying
no,
that
no, I
it's
know,
worth the
I know.
conversation.
I'm just saying, like people have brought that up before, but like I think that's how much he means to this team. Like I think like there's no chance he's getting traded.
He does. And then to add to that, I mean, you just brought it up of the cap space that we have this summer. I mean, that's going to be an element that we haven't talked about enough already is as imagine, I guess I haven't looked extremely deep into this free agent class, but if we can get a borderline, all-star and put him alongside with, of course, a Cade Cunningham, a Sadiq Bey. I'm not sure where if Bojan will be on the team, depending on what moves we make there. And to add an all-star to that, as well as a top 3 pick. I mean, Sean, I do think next year's team is going to be a lot different than this year's team. And that's, of course, as a Pistons fan, something that we can really, really look forward to.
Right. And, there's a lot of guys, they're going to be available this summer, not, some all-star players, like some, just like really good players, but the ultimate thing too, that we talked about before with cap space, it doesn't just open up the option for free agency. It opens up the options for trades as well. So, like the fact, that like they'll have the money to be able to take on incoming salary for, a player if they want to go and make a move, like that's an option now. And the fact that, again, the fact that Detroit right now has a viable 2 big lineup, and they also have the ability to switch it up and they can, and, like what's going to make this team dangerous is when they can really utilize and fully utilize like what having, Jalen Duren and Isaiah Stewart means, because, if you can make lineups going forward because like one of my favorite things about the Pelicans is that they can literally match your style. They can go big and they can get really tall and they can play physical. They can go really small and run up and down the court and switch on you and just play Larry Nance at the 5, and he's going to be a freaking pest, right? If the Pistons can create lineups where they can go really big, have Marvin Bagley and Jalen Duren alongside, guys with length that can switch, that can shoot, and then conversely have a small ball lineup with Stu at the 5 and make things happen that way. Like that's a weapon that they can utilize. Not just the fact that they can play together, but when they can utilize having these guys in their own lineups, like and being able to utilize what best fits their matchup, that's going to be dangerous.
Mm-hmm. And that's where the league's trending. I mean, Golden State kind of, glorified this with Draymond Green. Like if you have a guy like Isaiah Stewart, who's insanely versatile, he can guard all 5 positions. Now he's able to step out and shoot the 3 ball. And I'm going to be honest with you. When we talked about Isaiah Stewart, in the summer, how I felt, Sean, about his 3-point. I thought he'd struggle this year to start. I didn't know he'd be this good, I mean, I know there's still plenty of season left, but my goodness. I mean, he's been more impressive than I would have predicted. So Isaiah Stewart to me is a big X factor. I think that was the player I named before the season and who I think if they take the next step takes this team to another level. That was before the draft with Duren, but Isaiah Stewart to me is that X factor. And I would agree with you. I think there's obviously besides the rookies and Cade, I think he is untouchable. I mean, with the flexibility you could have with Isaiah Stewart, and he's not even fully at his prime yet, it's scary. And to your point, Sean, I mean, the Pelicans is a great example because they're so dangerous because of Zion and Larry Nance and those guys. Those guys can move around in different positions. Isaiah Stewart to me, not only is he going to be a hell of a player, but what the Dwayne Casey or the next head coach in the future could do with Isaiah Stewart, it's limitless, especially come playoff time when teams want to go small on you. I mean, you have Isaiah Stewart. It's going to cause teams problems. Yeah, everybody can shoot on the court.
Yeah, exactly. And that's going to be the thing is, as they keep improving that second unit, as they keep fleshing out that starting 5, and as we get better players in the building, that better fit what we're doing, that's going to make this team more competitive in itself. And, that's the thing. And even then next year, we're going to have Isaiah Stewart with another summer off his belt, building off this campaign that he's having shooting from the field. You're going to get Jalen Duren with a full NBA year under his belt and going into an offseason knowing what he needs to work on. You're going to have like a ton of guys that are going to be able to continue to develop. You're going to have, I think Jaden Ivey is going to have a significant improvement from year 1 to year 2. Like that's the guy to me that is going to benefit a ton from his first offseason. Because, going home, working with like people with the likes of his mom, working with like guys like John Morant, like, that he's going to attack this offseason and start working on those things that he needs to improve his game. And like, that's the thing as a whole. It's like, that's, it's like, yes, this team right now isn't where you want them to be. And like each and every week, it's kind of like yep, we don't really care about the wins and losses anymore, but like, there's good reason, right? Like there's still continual good signs of like, hey, this is still a good team. And listen, if fans stopped tuning into this team because of what their record was, I understand, but you've missed some really fun basketball over the last month.
Sure.
Even with some losses, you've missed some really fun basketball.
Yeah. And you're watching guys take the next step, like Killian Hayes.
Yeah.
You're telling me, and again, if people want to come at Dwayne and that's a big thing, player development, why can't you give credit for the Killian Hayes move in allowing him, giving him the freedom to start, taking on more of a responsibility, trusting Killian, and look how he's handled it. Like to me, that's a good move. Again, if you want to criticize him for his rotations, I know we always find ourselves trying to defend Dwayne, but in this instance, I got to give him credit. I mean, Killian Hayes, the player development to me with different guys. I know Sadiq, you're finding a role for him, but Jaden Ivey last night, people go quiet to me when it comes to that stuff, but they're quick to critique Dwayne when there's other things. That's what frustrates me. So to your point, Sean, players are going to continue to get better. These guys want to work. And that's a common theme Troy's been doing in the draft, which I love is he's not even just drafting the player, he's drafting the person, and he's finding guys that fit that mentality of not only, I know it's cliche to say Detroit, but guys that want to work and improve. And I agree with you. I think Jaden Ivey, I think that's a great point. I think he's going to be the guy to watch because what he's going to be able to do in the offseason, and we haven't even got to Duran, Isaiah Stewart. I mean, you can keep going. Cade now, when he gets fully healthy, it's going to be scary. And you have all that flexibility with money and draft capital. It's like
I see people complaining all the time going like, oh, I can't deal with this much longer. And I'm like, dude, you're not you're not gonna be like, this is like knock on wood, assuming everything goes according to plan, next year is going to be different. And with the resources they have, the assets that they have, there's no chance that this team is worse than this next year. There's no chance at this point next year we will not be at double-digit wins. I'm confident in that.
Because by then you'd assume Troy now you have 2 seasons 3 seasons if you want to count the first draft class, but you found guys. This season's about really finding out who's staying, who's the keeper. And you're going to find out a lot this season. That's why I mean, people, they're going to complain about anything. I mean, that's sports fans. But at the end of the day, I mean, I don't know how you can at least love tuning into these guys and just watching them play. I mean, you watched Ivey last night against the Nets play well. I know he went out early, but still, I mean, to me, that's entertaining, despite the win or the loss. I mean, at this point, I could care less.
Yeah, exactly. Because that's the thing, man. Like, I know a lot of people talk about, Jaden Ivey's shortcomings and his flaws and see everything that, he messes up with as a young guard. But man, I tell you what, when Jaden Ivey is on, and when he is playing at the apex of what he's capable of at this point, that kid is special.
Yeah,
look at his athleticism.
He put 2 dudes in a body bag last night. I mean,
yep. One last thing I'll say before we move on to like league wide stuff. I actually think in the long term we're going to be looking at Sadiq Bey coming off the bench as a blessing in disguise, because like even though like yes. He didn't take the jump this year that people I think expected of him. He is getting his stats in a different way if you think about it. Like playing and coming off the second unit and being that leading guy, getting his own buckets, like more so being his own creator than being a catch and shoot guy, and more so getting his like buckets off assists. Like it seems like he's playing almost like a different game. And also over the month of December, his 3-point percentage is getting back to his career averages as well. So like it seems like he's turning form, and quite frankly, like if he keeps playing this way, he's only going to get better. So like I'm not worried about Sadiq Bey. But moving on, I am worried about quite a few teams in the NBA, and that's why we're going to play a new game called Blow It Up or Keep It Up. The game is simple, gentlemen. I am going to read you a series of NBA teams. We're going to pause at each team and we're going to debate whether you think at this point in the season they should blow it up and go for Wemby or keep it up and go for the title. Obviously, not all of these teams are actually going to win, are going to have a chance to win the title. Not all of these teams are going to be able to make a great playoff run. Some of these teams could actually turn their season around and do some pretty decent things. But I want to start with the Toronto Raptors. The Toronto Raptors are currently on a 5-game losing streak, are 2-8 in their last 10, and currently sit at 13-17. Good enough for the 10th seed in the Eastern Conference. They are below the Indiana Pacers. They are below the New York Knicks. They are below the Atlanta Hawks. They're below the Cleveland Cavaliers. Scotty Barnes was supposed to take a year 2 rise in order for this team to take a next step. Scotty Barnes is having quite the sophomore slump. His averages are around the same as last year, if not worse. And Fred VanVleet is apparently taking a step back. As good as Pascal Siakam's been, he's in and out of the lineup. OG Anunoby's good, but they're Toronto's kind of in this weird spot where they could either keep it together, see if they can ride this out, and see if they can still make the playoffs this season, or they're in a position where you could retool this, see if you can get another great player alongside Scotty Barnes, and then in a year or two, still be in a pretty decent spot. What do you guys think? Should the Raptors blow it up or keep it up?
You go first, Troy.
I'm going to go blow it up just because of this.
Yes.
Because of this, Sean. You haven't been able to do anything since you won the championship. I mean, let's be honest. As far as wins, I mean, you make it to the playoffs. You lose to a Sixers team last year that pretty much dismantled you in every way imaginable. And I just feel like you have the assets to blow it up. Like I feel like they're in a good position to blow it up. They're in a better position to blow it up than they are in a position to keep it up. And, you can easily move a guy like Siakam and make your franchise around a Scotty Barnes, or you could go crazy and trade your Scotty Barnes and get pieces around Siakam moving forward.
But even then, that's the thing though. Is Scotty Barnes as valuable as he was a few months ago? Because here's the thing.
Which is why you can make that argument of trading him now and see what you can get out of him. So I just feel like you're not going to win with this roster. This is not a championship roster. So why not blow it up?
Yeah, that's fair. Jeff, blow it up or keep it up?
Blow that thing up.
Yes.
No, listen, and I agree with you guys. And the Raptors are in an interesting, I think you said it best. They're in an interesting position. I mean, you have Pascal Siakam. You have multiple guys giving you at least 15 points. Gary Trent Jr., OG Anunoby, Fred VanVleet. These are pieces you can move. Now, I don't know if you have to include draft capital in that deal, depending on who's available, but you have to get somebody else. And for Scotty Barnes, he's not as valuable as he was a year ago. If anything, you just keep Scotty Barnes at this point until he possibly takes that next step. I think he eventually will, but who knows? That's why we all love Cade. We're not just homers. You saw the potential with them. But yeah, they got to blow this thing up. You have different pieces that are intriguing, but collectively, to Troy's point, they're not winning a damn thing. So unless Scotty turns into a superstar, which clearly isn't the case right now, you got to go out and get somebody that can be the dude along with Siakam until Scotty takes that next step. So you can't win a championship, like Troy said. You basically won a championship and tried to rebuild slightly. You draft Scotty, it's been awkward. So yeah, trade some of those pieces, try and get yourself a big dog.
Yeah, guys.
Scotty's good, but he's no Kawhi.
Guys, this is the team that could blow it up the easiest. This is the team that could blow it up the quickest. This is the team that could blow it up the most seamlessly. And this is the team that could blow it up that makes the most sense. Listen, they have remnants of their championship team. They wanted to stay competitive and try and retool and still be young and see if they can continue to compete. Obviously, we've seen that's not working. Obviously, we see that they have some really good young pieces that they can move forward and build around, because Toronto, that's the thing. They have a program. If they rebuild, it's not going to take long until they're in playoff talks again, right? it would probably suck 1, maybe 2 years, and then they're probably going to be right back, right? So like blow it up, see what you can get for all of these guys. Even if you don't get a Victor Wembanyama, which by the way, if you do, then that just takes you to a whole other level. Imagine Scotty Barnes and Wemby. Like that would be insane. But also like the fact that even if you don't get him, you're still getting a top pick that you can build around and like support with Scotty Barnes. See what you can do because it's clearly better than what you have going right now. They just suck, guys.
Yeah.
They just got blown out at home by the Stephless Warriors.
Yeah. Didn't they lost like 6 straight, right? 5 or 6 straight. They're on a losing streak right now. So yeah, you're not winning a championship with Siakam as your best player. No, you just aren't. I mean, and that's not a shot at Siakam. It's just the truth. I mean,
just facts.
You got to get somebody else in there. So we all agree mutually.
Yeah. There's levels. Like there's levels to this. There just is, right? Another team, and I think this is like a little more interesting one. The Oklahoma City Thunder. So the Thunder currently are sitting at 12-18, are currently 3 games back of the play-in tournament. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is having the season of his life. It appears he's turning the corner, and it looks like next year with Chet coming back and, with them potentially, like how many picks they have, like they could potentially like really put something together. But at the same time, they're sitting in a spot or maybe they could trade some pieces and maybe see if they can get some more picks. Maybe they can float out and test the waters and maybe put themselves in a more prime position to get Victor Wembanyama and see if you can make that rebuild in Oklahoma City even crazier. Like there's a legitimate case to say that this team could push for the play-in tournament and this team could push for the lottery. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to pose to you guys, Oklahoma City Thunder, keep it up or blow it up.
I'm going to go with keep it up. I like what they're building so far. I mean, you have so many assets, so much draft capital. You don't even have Chet Holmgren this year, and they're almost 500. Like, are you kidding me? Like, this is, right. I don't know what they'd be with Chet. Obviously, they'd be slightly better, maybe even significantly, depending on how Chet plays and how much of an impact he has. But no, you keep the core you currently have. Guys are going to get better. They have so much draft capital. You can use that to maneuver and possibly get somebody. They're in a spot right now where they're growing in front of our eyes. I mean, they're a little ahead of the Pistons because they have everybody completely healthy besides Chet. I mean, their main players like Shai. I mean, we don't have a Shai on this team currently. They have a monster in Shai. They should keep him. I don't think they should trade him. He's an incredible player. You keep him a part of your young core, and you just keep building. If Giddey, now you have Chet Holmgren coming back. I liked who they got in Jalen Williams. Both Williams they have coming off their bench. So no, yeah, I like what OKC's building. I would say keep it up. They have so many assets. OKC's already blown the hell out of it up, so they're good. I would say keep it up right now.
Troy?
I know they have great draft capital. I know what they have going in the next 5 years as far as picks, but I just don't think 2022, 2023 is their year to keep it up. I know Shai has been playing out of this world. I know that Josh Giddey has had a massive even season.
I love Josh Giddey.
Yeah, same. But I just think this is a year where you got to be in the lottery again. And
they're going to be in the lottery, though, Troy. It's not like they're not going to be in there.
Right. You gotta get another top 7 pick and roll with it this upcoming year.
You don't think Troy, what about that? Now, would you make that a same argument for the Pistons? Would you say
make that same argument for the Pistons?
Now, would you say they should blow it up?
Well, we're already kind of.
Like, would you trade Bojan? Would you? Because that's
no, you say, okay, Troy, you say they have to be top 7. Where right now are they're in the standings? They're essentially in a position where they're getting a top 7, top 10 pick in the lottery. So in theory, you don't necessarily have to give up assets and tank this season to make that happen. You could still, in theory, keep some of these guys together, see what you have going forward, and just use some of those picks this off. If they really wanted to, they could make some trades to move up in the draft if they really wanted to.
I'm not necessarily saying totally blow it up. I'm just saying don't put every egg in the basket this year of trying to make a playoff run.
So keep it up, but don't when you say keep it up, don't go double down. Just keep doing what you're doing.
keep doing what you're doing. Yeah, I guess that's a fair where I'm at. I'm
Because-
still leaning towards expect to be in the lottery. Do not expect to be in the play-in tournament.
They
Blow it
are
up would
currently a
meaning-
bottom 3 team in the West. I do want to
'cause-
point out.
Right.
Blowing up would mean you blow it up. Like you trade
Right.
Shea, you trade.
Well, oh, right. And I'm not there. I'm not in
Okay,
either.
so
I'm not in keep it up or blow it up with that.
Okay.
One. So
Yeah, I feel like I
the
feel like
reason
you're
why-
more in keep it up with that in the
Yeah,
sense that
sure.
you're not changing what they're doing.
Sure.
The reason why I made the Pistons point too is because you're both significant players are out. We don't know Chet's impact, but my point is you're seeing player development. There's a lot of positive things you're seeing in OKC, and they're still winning games. So it's like you haven't really done anything significant yet, and you're almost 500.
Right.
I like what they're building and the draft capital they have. Like they can move up. They could trade to a team who wants to completely tank and blow it up and acquire their star. They're in a good position. OKC,
Yeah.
honestly, they really are.
Maybe we add a third category. Let it ride.
Well, and I kind of think that's kind of what I meant by keep it up is like you can kind of like, continue what you're doing. Like it doesn't necessarily mean you have to like invest even more. Like, like there's certain teams that are like in the middle. Like, for example, the next team that I was going to bring up on this list, the Golden State Warriors. They're kind of in this middle awkward spot where, they're 15 and 16 at this current time. They would be just outside of the play-in tournament. The Golden State Warriors would not be in the playoffs if it were to start today. They wouldn't be in the play-in.
Yeah.
And so they're in a spot and Steph Curry is going to miss at least the next month with a shoulder injury. However, assuming Steph comes back, I think they're still going to be in a pretty decent spot to still make it to the play-in tournament. And if the Warriors make it through the play-in tournament and get into the playoffs, are you telling me that you don't feel comfortable that them playing against, if it started today, Memphis or Denver, you don't think they could beat them in a playoff series?
Yeah.
So here's the thing. The Warriors, they could either kind of reposition themselves, see if they can get in the lottery and get another, young player that they can maneuver to perhaps make the Warriors even better next year. Or do you go all in with Draymond's last year on the Warriors, use some of these young assets that you have and go and try and build around this team for the one last ride of Steph? Or do you keep what you have right now and just see if these guys can get better? What do you guys think? Should the Warriors blow it up? Should they keep it up? What do you guys think they should do?
You go first on this one, Troy.
They're in such a weird spot, aren't they?
They are. And I think you can make a good argument for keep it up as far as trusting this roster to get you to the playoffs and then upset against the Denver team. I mean, that's a great argument. And I guess I'm kind of leaning towards there. But also, I mean, you do have guys that you can trade.
What if they go, they can go get an Alex Caruso from Chicago? What if they can go, you know what I mean? There are certainly guys that I think they can go get, but in order to do that, you'd have to trade a Jonathan Kuminga. You'd have to trade a Moses Moody. And quite frankly, to really put this team in a position that they'd want to be in, you're going to have to trade James Wiseman too.
Yeah. And I guess I'm leaning towards that. I think all three of us can agree that the lottery should be the last thing on the Warriors' mind. I think it's either the question of trust your core now to get you to an upset in the first round, or go out and make a move with the younger guys. And I
see where this is interesting though, because blow it up doesn't always necessarily mean the same thing for every team.
Sure. Blow it up could mean, trade those young pieces. And I guess I'm there, especially you brought up a great name, like a guy like Caruso. And I guess I am willing to trade a Wiseman. I really am. I'm willing to trade a Kuminga even too, if as long as it's a proven guy in this league who knows how to win and knows how to at least play good defense, that that we can trust him on that end of the court. So I guess I'm in blow it up as far as make moves that can get you for sure, at least pretty confident past that first round.
Yeah. I mean, guys, we're at a point now where, where James Wiseman has played more, he's going to be playing more G League games at a certain point than he's going to be playing NBA games, it feels like. And, I personally don't know what his future holds or what can happen there, but You know, the fact that he's already been sent down to the G League a couple times this season, and like, listen, I'm not gonna lie, like, you know, that lottery we all know was kind of a crapshoot to begin with. I think we're kind of seeing the proof in the pudding that James Wiseman wasn't the guy.
Right.
Like, I just think, you know, like the Warriors, like in my opinion, and I think we're all in agreement here, even like they still have guys like Jordan Poole. They're still the Warriors. Like, I think in like 5 years down the road, I'm not super worried about where their future is going to be, but I am worried about one thing, making sure that we do as much as humanly possible to win while we have Steph Curry, because Steph Curry is the greatest shooter to ever live. And when we can win and maximize that, like, don't do what the Lakers are doing right now, right? Don't make that mistake. Right. Even though you've already won multiple titles with Steph, keep going.
Yeah, go ahead, Jeff.
Yeah, no, and I think I agree with both of you guys, and that's why the term "blow it up" it's interesting. For me, you got to make a move. I think Bob Myers was in an interesting position because you have your championship core and you draft a James Wiseman or a Kuminga or Moses Moody, and you expect those guys to be good enough to at least alleviate some of the pressure off your guys that are getting older, like Klay Thompson coming off back-to-back injuries, Draymond Green, who's pretty much proven he's not as effective as he once was, and then Steph Curry. I mean, to your point, Sean, the greatest shooter to ever live. So you gotta utilize that window while you have these guys still. So you got to make a move. That's where I stand on it. Whether it's trading Kuminga, James Wiseman, Moses Moody, as much as you might like those young players, at the end of the day, you're better off trying to compete right now. And those might be your most valuable pieces to get rid of. So if I'm Bob Myers, I'm calling the phones. I'm trying to see if I can acquire some guys. I mean, even if it's a Alex Caruso, it's not a big name guy that's available via trade. You got to make a move. You got to utilize this window. I think that's kind of the point I'm making. You have a limited window with Klay, Steph, and even Jordan Poole's young, but still, you want to utilize those windows with their championship players. I think they got to make a move now. So whatever it takes.
Yeah, 100%. Guys, the next team on this list, the Washington Wizards. The Wizards are currently sitting at 11-20 and are currently on a 10-game losing streak. 10 games. 10. They are currently sitting with the exact same record as the Orlando Magic. But the difference is Washington over this offseason spent $250 million on Bradley Beal and gave him no trade clause. Went and acquired Kristaps Porzingis over in the deadline last season to try to give Bradley Beal a worthy running mate. By the way, you know what's the worst part for the Wizards? They can't even rely on the excuse that Kristaps Porzingis hasn't been healthy because he's played all but one game. And he's been their leading scorer. He's been their leading rebounder. He's only missed 2 games. Like he's been the healthiest of his career. It just hasn't mattered.
Yeah. I gotta go on for this. I gotta go first on this one, and you gotta blow it up because here's why: the Washington Wizards in the past 5 years have not even remotely tried to blow it up in any way, shape, or form. It reminds me a lot of the Pistons in that 2013, 2014 era, a little bit with, Brandon Jennings and kind of those guys. And just you were putting out a roster to compete and to win, but in no way, shape, or form was that roster ready to compete or to win. And none of those rosters had any potential to even go far in a playoff setting, right? So I think with this team, you just have to settle down. You have to realize that this team is going absolutely nowhere, and you got to blow it up if it's trading Porzingis, which I'm not really sure what your value is going to be there. You do have a couple of younger guys on your team. You could potentially trade in a package with that, but they need to be focusing on the 2023 NBA draft. They do not need to be looking at any wins this upcoming season.
I mean, guys, I would say, and Jeff, I would just, I want to toss this to you next. If I'm the owner of the Washington Wizards, I do not know how I'm letting my president of basketball operations survive this season with how it's gone. When when you are when any team goes through a 10-game losing streak for any reason, like even with Bradley Beal like in and out of the lineup, which by the way he's been in the lineup for the majority of this losing streak, even with guys like Rui Hachimura being out of the lineup, like this team like isn't good. Like this team was never, promising enough to be seen as anything other than a playing team in this conference to me. And like you look at their team and you look at like the most valuable pieces they have, they're not guys they drafted. They're not guys that are Washington Wizards like in-house guys. It's Kyle Kuzma, who has an expiring contract. And the reason why he's promising is because he's the one player on that team that doesn't suck. And then you look like up and down the lineup, like let's just look at all the first round disappointments. Like tell me, like let me know when you hear a guy that you thought was a really good draft pick. Corey Kispert, Johnny Davis, Rui Hachimura, Bradley Beal. Like this is like like Denny Avdia. Like this is just a roster full of guys that I have no faith in. The only guy on this roster I like is Kyle Kuzma. And Bradley Beal is the Andre Drummond of guards. I'm sorry. Like he's been a third team all NBA guy one time. And you're telling me he has the only no trade clause in the NBA?
Sure.
In Johnny Davis, we could tell this guy was going to suck just off of his summer league performance. You guys know his averages this year?
Let's hear it.
8 games played, 1.1 points, 0.6 rebounds, 0.3 assists, 27% from the field. You know how hard it is to average 1 point and shoot 27% from the field in 8 games? That's pretty freaking hard.
Yeah. And you just made the case. Blow it up. And fire Tommy Shepard while you're at it. I mean, I was going to, you hit on, it's funny you read my mind because I was going to go in the way of the draft. I mean, where are the promising young players on this team? Johnny Davis, as of right now, doesn't look promising. I mean, if anything, it looks, I don't want to go this far this early, but he's sneaking into that bus. I mean, for the 10th overall pick, you expect a guy like Johnny Davis to at least have some sort of impact. Little to none. And on top of that, you're relying on guys like Porzingis, who, to Troy's point, doesn't have much trade value right now. Maybe you trade him, but you got to trade Kyle Kuzma. It's the only player on your roster that is intriguing, and you've seen the rumors already float around. I'm assuming that Washington, besides Bradley Beal, because good luck trading him in that contract, and you can't because you have a no trade clause unless he approves it, so you're screwed. So yeah, terrible job. I mean, for the Wizards and what they've done ever since John Wall left with him and Bradley Beal, it was entertaining to watch those guys. But since that, I mean, this is the point I made about Siakam. I just don't, and it's obvious. Bradley Beal's your best player. What are you winning? I mean, let's be honest here. And Porzingis is your co-star. It's a disaster. Blow it up. But do you trust Tommy Shepard in the draft? So they got to, and I'm not just talking about blow it up from a roster, blow it up organizationally. Fire Tommy Shepard, blow up the roster, and hit the reset button. That's what the Wizards got to do to even try and be relevant.
If this roster, if this team still keeps their same organizational structure,
It's screwed.
They blow it up and they get Victor Wembanyama, I still don't think that solves anything for this team. I think if this, in my opinion, this would be the one team in the lottery that would find a way to not win a championship with getting Victor Wembanyama. Like he could have a all-time season for the Washington Wizards. But I think they're so incapable of making good decisions that even they couldn't capitalize on that.
Mm-hmm.
Let me here's a little fun. Here's a little fun little quiz we can do here. You ready? Let's look at how many All-Stars the Washington Wizards have drafted since 1999. Troy, what's your guess?
Does this list include players that the Wizards drafted that went on to beat All-Stars from other teams?
This is just guys that they have drafted in-house that
Okay.
went on to become all-stars. It can be for other teams. That can be included.
Specific players, not if it's multi-level, it's still multi-all-stars, it still counts as one player, right?
Yes.
I'm gonna guess
I'll go 3.
4.
3 is the correct answer. They have drafted
What Gilbert, John
Arenas,
Wall,
Rip
Bradley Beal?
Hamilton.
Okay, so all right, so hold on. I might have screwed up just once. Did they draft Gilbert Arenas or did they acquire him via trade?
Warriors drafted him.
Oh yeah, yes, you're right.
They didn't draft Gilbert Arenas. That's so funny. Okay, yep. So it's
Rip.
3. You want to hear the 3?
Give it to me.
Beal, who else?
Rip, Beal, John Wall.
Yeah.
So, and even then, Richard Hamilton went on to have the best days of his career in Detroit.
Yeah, post.
He was an all-star in Detroit. John Wall was great, but then the second they paid him, we all know what happened from there.
Yeah.
And Bradley Beal, he was an all-star where it was like, should he be an all-star? And like,
so essentially those 3 don't count, Sean, is what you're saying.
I mean, like, yeah, like, I mean, like he like Bradley Beal's good, but like guys, like there's like we've talked about this before, like guys that average 20 points and it means nothing. Like he's the epitome of that, right? And you know, like I just again, like you look at like he literally has the control over his own destiny. Like he has this franchise at hostage point. And even then, you look at his overall production, like he's played 19 games so far. Like, are you thrilled that you're paying a guy, $250 million over the life of his contract?
Ooh.
And he's only averaging 23 points. Like,
it's rough.
Like, isn't that like, aren't you kind of disappointed with that? I don't know. Maybe that's just me.
No, it's just it's a franchise player. You expect Bradley Beal to be the best player on a championship team if you're paying him that money.
Especially when all you hear from him all off season and during the season in interviews was essentially that he went back to Washington because he didn't have any other choice and because of the money. You know, like when have you ever heard a glowing endorsement of the Washington Wizards?
Can't
say
I have.
Like honestly, like they were in a situation where like they were lucky that the Lakers bailed them out of the Russell Westbrook trade. And even then, they weren't able to find a way to capitalize upon that to turn it into a successful situation for them either. Remember when they signed Spencer Dinwiddie last year and they went to Dallas and immediately started playing really well?
It's damned if you do, damned if you don't.
Like, oh my gosh,
they do something good, it doesn't work out. And if they don't do anything, it doesn't work out. So
yeah, they're one of my least favorite organizations in basketball. The next team, the Orlando Magic. They're sitting at 11-20, the same record as the Washington Wizards. However, the Orlando Magic are on a little bit of a win streak, including this past weekend getting a win over the Boston Celtics in the TD Garden off of Paulo Banchero's big 31-point game, including 6-7 from the 3-point line. Paulo's freaking awesome. Franz Wagner looks like he's going to be a stud. Bull is what? Better than I thought he was going to be. Like the Magic have won 6 in a row. They are 6-4 in their last 10.
That's awesome. I think keep it up just because you're still going to find yourself in the lottery.
Right.
Yeah, and you look at the players they have, you have tons of young talent, and they're at a point similar to the Pistons where you're looking to see who's staying, and they have a lot of young guys that I want to see more of. I mean, you're seeing Cole Anthony, Paulo, like you said, Franz Wagner, you got Markelle Fultz, Bull, Wendell Carter. Like there's a lot of guys there. There's a little bit of promise, especially when you have a franchise player already in Paulo. I mean, he's the guy, as we know, and what we've seen so far. So yeah, keep it up. Yeah,
right.
In Detroit's point, they're going to end up sneaking their way and grabbing another player in the top 10. So no problem with what the Magic are doing right now. No reason to blow that up for what.
Even more impressively, by the way, they won 2 games in a row in the Garden at Boston. Like part of their win streak is 2 straight wins at Boston.
Yeah, their size, man, they cause teams problems. They really do. With their we talk about versatility.
Well,
Magic can be versatile, man.
Well, like I would even make the argument too. Let's say this team like continues to improve as the season goes on. Let's say this team gets to a point where they're rising in the standings a little bit. Let's say they end up in the play-in tournament and like they get out of the Victor Wembanyama sweepstakes. I don't think that's a bad thing for this team.
Sure.
Like I feel like if this is a team that can like put together a streak and like make a run and prove it, like they have some real talent, like it's abundantly clear that they have a star in Pablo. You know what I mean? Like it's
Right.
not like this draft, like this next year's draft is really what's defining this team's future. Like
Right,
they
exactly.
have Paulo, they have Franz, like
Suggs.
you start from there, man. Like Suggs is still something. Like that's a great base to start off of.
It is.
So
it is.
yeah, like isn't that funny though? Like how you can contrast like two teams that are the exact same record and how incredibly different situations they are.
Yeah,
Context, baby.
It's the league, man.
Yep. And so with that, one last team, the Chicago Bulls, sitting at 11-18, almost the exact same record as the Washington Wizards and as the Orlando Magic. But the difference with this team is that they also had significant playoff aspirations coming into this season. They also were relying on, on some of their younger pieces taking next steps for them as well. A guy like Patrick Williams, to be specific. That hasn't happened.
Mm-mm.
And even more specifically, not only has Patrick Williams not looked like, like that guy that they were hoping for, he hasn't looked like a guy, like at all to me. Like, I know that draft, like we could all do like the hindsight drafting and go like, oh, this team could have picked this guy. This team could have picked that guy. But like, guys, like they could have had Tyrese Halliburton. Like the Bulls would be way better off if they had Tyrese Halliburton right now. But like, in all seriousness, you have Zach LaVine, you have DeMar DeRozan, you have the expiring contract of Vooch, you have you have Alex Caruso, who would garner value from teams. Patrick Williams is still a piece that you could technically flip. You could see what the heck you're gonna get with Lonzo when he comes back healthy. Maybe see if you could build around him, or maybe if you could trade him at some point. But like, guys, tell me why they got to blow this thing up, man. Because I like, we can't even hide it. I hate what this team is.
Yeah, I mean, similar to the Raptors, you have players that you can move, and you're better off moving them than trying to put rosters out there to compete for a championship. I mean, DeMar DeRozan is a great player, but he is nowhere even remotely close to a first option on a championship team. And Vooch as the second option on a championship team, I'm not going there either.
Yeah, blow it up, man. I mean, you talk about the expiring contract of Vooch. That's got to be intriguing to somebody. And on top of that, too, Zach LaVine is still one of my favorite players to watch. But it's not even just blow it up from a roster perspective. They got to fire Billy Donovan. I've seen enough. So they need a new head coach in there. I like Billy. I got respect for him. But Andre Drummond the other night didn't play at all. Coach's decision. They get out rebounded. It's a disaster. So yeah,
it was. By the way, it was really funny to me that Andre Drummond was getting a DNP the night that Jalen Duren was going to try to break Dwight Howard's record for most consecutive 12+ rebound games.
Oh, the irony, the storyline, right, Jeff?
Like that's what I'm saying. Just like the beauty of that, Like meanwhile in Chicago, Andre getting another DNP. Yeah, another team hating Andre's effort. But like anyway,
it's a collection of players that you ultimately don't see a future with. So yeah, you got to trade. You got to blow that thing up. You do.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, you guys hit it right on the head. I mean, when I look at a roster, just that I don't like the ceiling of, I don't like the floor of, I don't like anything in between. Like this, like there is like a collection of players here that I like, but this isn't a good basketball team when you put the pieces together. Right? Like I still think Vucevic could inherently have value for a team. I still think he could play could be a contender, but like I think he needs to be much more like what Marc Gasol was for the Raptors, that year, where he's more of a stripped back, like not trying to be like one of the pivotal points of a team. Like he needs to be a fourth or fifth option somewhere.
I wouldn't even mind him. And I know Brook Lopez has had a great year, but something in that role where you have a Giannis, a Chris Middleton, a Drew Holiday, and then you get to Brook Lopez. I think that's kind of the scenario I see Vooch in. Like you got to be the fourth option.
But with that being said, the Bulls have a long way to go before they're ready to put out a championship contending roster.
Yeah.
Yep. By the way, can I name 3 teams I'd like for DeMar DeRozan?
Let's hear it.
All right. Number 1, the Memphis Grizzlies. They have a ton of young pieces and draft capital that they can, in theory, move off of, while at the same time still being able to keep a lot of key pieces that they have as well. You don't necessarily have to commit super long-term to DeMar DeRozan financially, but at the same time, you're getting a guy that doesn't necessarily need the ball, could play the speed that you guys play at, but at the same time, if you need another guy to go create a shot alongside Ja, I feel like that could potentially take them to another level. That's 1. Number 2, and this is a little bit more of a out there one, the Phoenix Suns. I'm not sure how they get it done, but like they'd have to give up some pieces they like. But like another ISO scorer, another guy alongside Devin Booker, a guy that can take him to another level. Like, I feel like that'd be really interesting. And then a third one, and this is like a little bit more out there, Sacramento Kings, baby. Just keep building on this, this fun competitive team that you have. Why not? Like if you're in a situation where you're trying to make a playoff run, take the next, just go one step further. Like keep going. Like this is clearly going pretty well. Like why not add another piece to it and see what you can do?
Sure.
So those are my potential 3 candidates. Another wild card one, by the way, Portland Trailblazers.
Yeah, I was just gonna say
that'd be nice too.
Yeah.
Think about that. Jeremy Grant, DeMar DeRozan, Dame Lillard, and there's got to be some pieces that'd be intriguing. Anthony Simons probably would stay, but you never know. I like the teams you listed off. I like the teams you listed off.
But that's tricky though, because do you trade? Because if you're the Portland Trailblazers, I don't know if I'm trading Anthony Simons or Shaedon Sharpe
or Jeremy Grant.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I don't think the Bulls would want Jeremy Grant.
I think Memphis is the most intriguing one because of what you said, the more young talent, and they could sacrifice a player or 2 in some assets and still have a majority of their core. And you bring in DeMar. I like it. They need a guy like DeMar. They need a big fish, as we call it.
Yeah.
They need another superstar alongside Ja.
Yeah. And in my opinion, if you want to see what this team in Memphis can really do, I'm just saying, they have pieces. And as far as the salary for DeMar DeRozan and the contract that he has coming up, his contract expires next year. So it's not like you'd have to give up a ton. You could see what you could do with a couple years of DeMar. If you don't like it, that opens up another slot where you can go and potentially make something else happen. And going forward, are you telling me that guys aren't looking at Memphis and saying and aren't thinking, man, that's a fun team to play with?
Yeah.
Just saying, they're gonna have options, man. They're gonna have some options. But that's enough of my squabbling. Jeff, I want to go to you. Last week, you introduced a segment to us, and you actually came to us and had an idea that I thought was pretty fun, and I'm excited to talk about. So I'm going to throw it your way, my friend.
Yes. So on this week, I'm going to change it up a little bit. Instead of doing players we trade for, I'm going to switch up and say coaches that you guys think should be fired. And you kind of already alluded to it, and I kind of gave it away because of my passion for how frustrated I am. I'm going to start with the Chicago Bulls. I'm going to go Billy Donovan. And you saw last year winning games, but come postseason time with the injuries they had, they were never taken serious. And you see it now. There's a reason why Billy Donovan was let go. And they didn't feel like he was the coach moving forward that could actually put you over the top. I want your guys' thoughts. Billy Donovan this year with the Chicago Bulls. Is he the future with the Bulls? Or if you're the general manager, are you cutting ties with him? Especially heading into a rebuild, potentially.
You got to cut ties because they're not winning. It's that simple. I mean, you're not – this roster, sure, we can say all we want about it not being ready to compete, but at the end of the day, we saw what they did last year, and it's night and day, and really we saw how much they crumbled. And really, a coach's job too is you can put out lineups there. You can do some X and O's that can put your team at least a little better than what they're doing now. And I just don't see this future having him with them.
Yeah, I I agree. I think they need to make a change at the head coach position as well. But I think that just means I think they have to make a lot of changes in that organization. Like I think, I think like when you bring in a new coach in Chicago, it's got to be a guy who's ready to come in and embrace a rebuild, a guy who's going to come in and face that challenge coming up. And I think Billy Donovan was that, kind of, like try to be competitive and stay relevant type of coach. And, we've seen like he's been serviceable. Like, he was fine when he was in Oklahoma City. Like, like he was able to take, young teams and like keep them like relatively competitive, especially like, teams that like overperformed what they were supposed to do. Right. But like at the same time, like I don't think I've ever looked at like Billy Donovan and been like, man, this guy's an incredible coach. He was sensational like in the Chris Paul year in Oklahoma City. But yet again, how important do you think Chris Paul was to the Chris Paul year in Oklahoma City? So it's like, yeah, I think the Chicago situation has been an absolute disaster. And if you're going to start with scapegoats, I certainly don't think Billy Donovan's a bad one.
Yeah, no, I would agree with you guys, especially in a team we talked about. We'd all agree they probably need to rebuild. I wouldn't move forward Billy Donovan. Go get a head coach that can relate to these players. Someone that you see a ceiling in, or a new ceiling with Billy Donovan. I feel like there already is a ceiling. Maybe I'm wrong on that, but yeah, I would make the change as well. The next coach I want to bring up is another coach that I feel passionate about. I hated the hire when it first happened. And I don't know if we've talked about it already, but Steve Clifford for the Charlotte Hornets, now the worst team in the NBA. And I know they've had, injuries with LaMelo Ball. You had the thing happen, the case over the summer with Miles Bridges. But more than that, I mean, this is a coach who's never won 50 games in his career. Never won 50 games. He's 61 years old. He's not getting any older or any younger, excuse me. To me, I would fire Steve Clifford, get him out of here, shoot him out of a cannon, and bring me in a former player. Again, that's the way the league's trending. And if I'm Charlotte, I'm making the move. But what about you guys? Steve Clifford, are you keeping him? Or are you shooting him out of the cannon?
Same, shooting out of the cannon, just because I just feel like, again, think about the direction they were in last year and this year. I mean, they're obviously moving towards Wimby, right? In a lot of ways. So I just, the future just doesn't have him in it.
I mean, guys, when this happened, it felt to me like Steve Clifford took the job was because Steve Clifford was available for the job. And like that's like, you look at like this team, they went and tried to get a coach that could help them move in the direction of a rebuild. Kenny Atkinson turned him down. He accepted the job and then went, on second thought, I'm going to say an assistant coach.
Sure.
In this team, like you look at their prospects, you look at going forward, like, I mean, this team doesn't look particularly inspired with Steve Clifford. I don't say I'd particularly have noticed a positive change under Steve Clifford. They're 30th in offense. They're 27th in defense. Like LaMelo Ball, like, yes, he's hardly played this season, and that certainly hasn't helped. But are you telling me that you really feel like the way that you're going to maximize LaMelo Ball's career going forward is having Steve Clifford as his coach? If Victor Wembanyama is coached by Steve Clifford, I'm going to have a panic attack. Like, I don't know what I'm going to do with I'm going to be apoplectic that happened. Like, how?
Yeah, no, that's my answer as well. Done with Steve Clifford, done with Billy Donovan. Last one I want to get to, and we've kind of talked about this a lot, but I want to clear the air. The Detroit Pistons, Dwayne Casey, and this was coming eventually. If you're Troy Weaver, do you fire him or do you keep him until you find your new head coach and you feel like this is the guy when you find him to move forward with your young core? Where are you guys at? Because I know a lot of people would hit that eject button right now. Game 31 of the season. Where are you guys at?
I'm not hitting it just because I think there's so much more to prove with this young core, especially we've seen so far so much player development with guys, especially your Killian Hayes is probably your best example and your best argument to know of how well has gone with player development. And, I just think that Troy Weaver and Dwayne Casey are in so many ways in sync with each other of finding young talent, finding even young talent that, this is their second stint with a team because the first stint wasn't well. I'm thinking of two guys in particular, Marvin Bagley, and I'm thinking of a Kevin Knox. And you can even throw a Jeremy Grant in there too, with what, the mile steps that we saw, the massive steps that we saw with their player development. So I just think it'd be too soon to hit the eject button with him.
Calls for Dwayne Casey's job are directionless. Calls for Dwayne Casey's job are pointless. Calls for Dwayne Casey's job don't see the grand picture of what this season is and what this season was supposed to be. First of all, you look at a team that's been competing more and more as the season has gone on. Yes, you've been in situations where you've given up leads that you've had at halftime, but who does that? Young teams. Who makes mistakes? Young teams. And the other thing as well, what do you want to see from a team that's young and that's developing? You want to see player development. That's the thing what we've talked about wanting to see from this roster. And when you look at every single team that's been drafted under the Troy Weaver tenure, what player hasn't developed positively? What player hasn't looked better under his tenure? People were ready to give up on Killian Hayes a month ago. Dwayne Casey wasn't. Look who's right about that. Dwayne Casey's made a lot of adjustments, by the way, to actually put this roster in a better position. Jalen Duren is in the starting lineup now, and he's playing awesome, but that's because Dwayne Casey didn't rush him to be in the starting lineup day one because he knew he didn't have to. That's the thing is Dwayne Casey has a pulse on these players. He understands what it means to develop and bring players along. He knows when guys are having nights and when they're not, and he's the steady voice in this locker room that they need. Quite frankly, the fact that this team is still looking as competitive as they are, the fact that they're still as feisty and want to win as much as they do with their number one guy on the sideline, that there is no reason to fire Dwayne Casey. And if you did, what would you be doing for your franchise? What's the direction for the rest of the year? Yep. What's your vision? What about firing Dwayne Casey today puts you in a better position to go get a head coach? No one's going to be available till until the end of the playoffs anyway. No, you're not going to be in a situation where you're going to actually be able to bring someone in until they see what lottery pick you get, because that's going to dictate where a lot of coaches are going to want to go. May I add, that's just something that you have to realize. Yes, you can make a coaching change this offseason, but firing Dwayne Casey, at all, let alone in the middle of the year, why?
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's the thing too, is fans know this. I mean, players aren't as replaceable as coaches. And whenever things go wrong, you look at the coach and you say, all right, let's fire him. With Dwayne Casey, this is a situation I think it's much bigger than what Dwayne could fix. I know if you people want to nitpick Dwayne, that's fine. But to say fire him and to your point, Sean, for what? Who would come in here and turn this entire season around? Nobody. So let them ride out. You at least have consistency at the coaching position, especially for a young team and a coach who's shown he can develop players. Players have a great relationship with him. Ride this thing out. He's the second oldest coach in the NBA. Clearly, he doesn't have a long future left in coaching. So let this thing ride out. Troy Weaver knows as well as anybody. There's a time and a place. There's like Steve Yzerman did with Blashill with the Red Wings. It's not about everyone saying, fire Blashill, fire Blashill, fire Blashill. He eventually fired Blashill on his time, not the fans' time, and he made the right decision bringing in Derek Lalonde. So I trust Troy Weaver. I love Dwayne. I love what he's done. He's a great human being, but more than that, I do think he has a lot to offer in terms of teaching, being a teacher. And to Troy's point, which I thought was great, him and Troy Weaver are in lockstep. They have a great relationship. I don't see him being fired, at least in the near future, maybe this offseason, but it depends who's available. There's a lot that goes into it. So bottom line, no, you don't fire him.
But even then, let's say they make a move this offseason at the head coaching position. You really think it's going to be from firing Dwayne Casey?
No, I think it'll be him a lot. They'll give him the right to be able to transition to another role. I think he's earned that respect. I don't believe he'll just be kicked to the corner. Thanks, Dwayne. See you later. I don't see that.
Yeah, like all the calls of saying that Dwayne Casey doesn't know how to coach. All this, it's just blatantly not true. It's just not. And again, you look at everything that you want a coach to do, and when you talk about the adjustments that you wanted him to make, where's the two big lineup? The second Marvin Bagley got healthy, they started doing two big lineups. They almost immediately went to the Isaiah Stewart, Jalen Duren pairing, and now we're seeing how much that's working. Where, what's going on with the bench? He helped turn the bench around with Marvin Bagley and Alec Burks coming back in the lineup, made the adjustment with Sadiq. We now have the best bench in the NBA. He's making adjustments, and the player development's going well, and there's not outbursts and breakouts in the locker room. The fact that things are stable,
that's all you
ask for.
Bingo. Yep. We're all in lockstep here.
Yeah, for sure.
And there you guys have it. Those are my 3 coaches. And
awesome.
We all pretty much agree on every single one of them. That's what I like to see.
Awesome. I like it. Troy, it's time to close the pod with your segment, my friend. At a segment we normally like to call From Mount Rushmore. The past couple months we've been doing Should He, Will He? I forgot. Was last week the final segment of Should He, Will He?
Yes, it was the last segment. So we're going right back to Mount Rushmore today, and I got a fun one. This one, all right. Mount Rushmore of greatest NBA trades of all time. Ooh. Now, here's what's interesting about this one. The greatest NBA trades are simultaneously going to be also the worst NBA trades for the other team, right? So I will start with this one. 1996 NBA draft. It's draft night. And you trade Vlade Divac to the Charlotte Hornets for the 13th pick, where you go on and select Kobe Bean Bryant. Best trade in NBA history on the Mount Rushmore. It has to be, right? I mean, we look at what Kobe's done, 5-time champion. What is it? 13-time All-Star, clear first ballot Hall of Famer. What he meant to the game of basketball, what he still means today, of course, after his tragic death. You turn Vlade Divac into Kobe Bryant. That has to be on the Mount Rushmore for me.
You know what, Troy? I like where your mind's at, and I'm going to expand on it. And with the second trade on this list, speaking of Kobe Bryant, the second trade on this list is when the Los Angeles Lakers acquired Pau Gasol at the NBA trade deadline in exchange for Andrew Bynum, his brother Mark, and all the other pieces that they included. But more importantly, not only did the Lakers get a top 5 player in the league at the time, Pau Gasol is a freak of nature, like an absolute monster. So many GMs were so upset after this trade went through, not only because he went to the Lakers, but because of how much they were able to get and how affordable he was. Like, that's the crazy thing. Like that's what makes it unreal. So the fact that like we're in a situation where like, Pau Gasol is able to, like go and like win 2 championships, and they were able to have that historic pairing with Kobe, like outside of Shaq, like elite stuff.
I got one that I got to give a lot of credit to because it just, and you guys talk about the greatest trades. I was going to bring up Kevin Garnett to the Celtics, but I think this one is more recently. And the reason why I love it so much is it took 1 season, and that's Kawhi Leonard to the Toronto Raptors.
Yep.
In winning a championship in 1 season on an expiring deal. True. And again, more than that, for what he traded, you trade away DeMar DeRozan, Jacob Poeltl, and you acquire Kawhi. He comes there first year within the system, Nick Nurse at head coach, and you go to the finals. And it took a miraculous last-minute shot against the 76ers that just absolutely ripped the heart out of Philly fans. But,
yeah, big time.
In a lot of injuries in the finals with the Warriors. But more than that, just the storyline. For what they traded, they got Kawhi, and you end up in a championship, and how much that means to Toronto. Listen, as a country, that's got to be up there for one of the most impactful trades.
And Sean and I were talking after that trade, and we were like, this makes no sense for the Spurs, and it makes no sense for the Raptors. What are they doing? But somehow the rental player turned into championship, so we're thankful for that. Yeah. I guess I don't know the pieces that was given up because the trade happened so long ago. But whatever the Los Angeles Lakers gave up to get Wilt Chamberlain from the Philadelphia 76ers, I mean, I know it was, I think, 4 or 5 players.
Yeah.
But there's no way that those 4 or 5 players could compete with Wilt Chamberlain. Right. So to me, that has to be on the list there. I just think of, Sean, pull that up. Who did the Lakers give up to get Wilt Chamberlain?
All right. So on July 9th in 1968, the Philadelphia 76ers traded their superstar center, Wilt Chamberlain, to the Los Angeles Lakers in exchange for Daryl Imhoff, Archie Clark, and Jerry Chambers, plus an undisclosed amount of cash.
I'm interested to see how much that
Yeah.
undisclosed amount of cash will.
Inflation makes
Yeah, with
that look like nothing.
inflation is going to make it look super friendly.
Yeah.
My goodness.
That's a great one. I want to throw a couple modern trades in there
Sure.
that I think you could make an argument belong on the list.
Sure.
So number 1, the Boston Celtics trading Kevin Garnett and Paul Pierce for a collection of assets that ultimately got them the rights to Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum.
Big time.
The greatest NBA duo currently since Shaq and Kobe, with what they're doing on the offensive end. And then number 2, the Detroit Pistons at the trade deadline acquired a forward named Rasheed Wallace that ultimately put them in the position to not only get to the finals 2 years in a row, but win a championship and rule over the Eastern Conference for 6+ years.
And we threw in a bag of chips for that one. I think we even threw in Lindsey Hunter there, and then he got bought out and we got him back right away.
Yeah.
Like, I mean,
shout out Lindsey Hunter, by the way. I want to have him on the pod at some point.
Lindsey Hunter. Yeah, shout out Lindsey Hunter. His son went to one of the Catholic schools in Detroit and won a high school championship in 2018. I think they beat our buddy. Shout out to Brock Emery's high school. Remember him, Sean?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, Lindsey Hunter's son beat their team. So
heck yeah, man. Shout out to Brock, but no way he's listening to this. But anyway, guys, I appreciate you both so much. Troy, I've held you up for more of this Packers game than I was supposed to.
Go Cheese.
I'm really sorry. But guys, I appreciate you both so much. This is a really fun episode. I want to thank you all so much for everyone that was listening to at home, and make sure that you're following us here at From Half Court Region. Every week we talk all things NBA basketball. If you like that, if you like this video, subscribe to the podcast. Be sure you share with a friend as well. But folks, that's going to do it for us so that Troy can go watch football. We want to thank you all so much for listening. We'll catch you guys next time from Half Court. Be sure you subscribe.